28 seconds.
27.
26.
25 seconds.
24. 23.
22 seconds.
21 seconds.
20 seconds. 19.
18. 17 seconds.
16.
15 seconds.
14.
13 seconds.
12. 11.
10 seconds.
9.
8.
7. 6.
6 what?
Copy.
5 seconds.
3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to Subspace Chatter, I guess. Where is everybody else coming out of the break? Aha!
That was different.
Yeah, that was weird.
Anyway.
Not sure what happened there, but anyway. What's wrong with it?
Are you starting us off, Vanessa, or am I?
Oh, welcome to Subspace Chatter, the YouTube channel where we gather around and talk about Star Trek. And today we are talking about the new episode of Prodigy, Crossroads. If everybody would like to introduce themselves, my name is Vanessa, and I host a YouTube channel called I Love Bad Star Trek.
My name is Scott, and I'm host of the YouTube channel Opinions No One Cares About.
I'm Dustin from the YouTube channel Best of Trek, Worst of Trek.
And I'm DS9 Dan, apparently. Webmaster or editor-in-chief of warpfactortrack.com.
So, Akana, why?
I had very good reasons for asking this question. I mean, that could have been literally anybody, especially since his impact on the episode, apart from escaping from the Xindi, was kind of negligible. The whole every scene like at the depot themselves kind of gave me a Star Wars vibe. I don't know if you guys were thinking about this. Because like it's, you know, a place that apparently is catering to smugglers and the like. I had live tweeted about it and actually referred to it as Snowden Mos Eisley. And then you've got Okano, who is literally looking the part of a scruffy looking nerf herder.
No, just after Okana spoke up for the first time, when the crew walks up to him, I was like, have you ever seen a more wretched hive of scum and villainy?
I thought that the only reason that they chose him was because in canon he has a ship of his own. But yeah, I mean he's always been a bit of a dupe for Luke Skywalker, so
Yeah.
I know the actor reportedly insisted on physical changes to what the character looks like.
Like the beard and the eye patch?
I can't remember if it's one or both. But yeah. Well, something like that. But also it seems like they also needed to track with how he looks in Lower Decks, because he was in the Dupplers episode in Lower Decks in season 2.
Yeah, he was DJing the party.
Yeah, exactly.
That was something I thought about, because Lower Decks and Prodigy are set just like it might even be in the same year now that Lower Decks is a year ahead as Prodigy. So it's kind of weird that he looks exactly like himself 20 years ago in Lower Decks, and a year later he's lost the eye and he's gained about 30 years on his appearance.
That was a rough year, man.
please don't shoot me. I met Han Solo, not Luke Skywalker. Please don't drag me out of my house and
oh yeah,
set me aflame. But that's what I meant. Han Solo dupe.
It's all good. But yeah, I mean, it could have been like they could have come up with a new character for it. I mean, and even now, like, I'm kind of wondering how long his arc is going to be. Are they going to throw him off in Romulan space? Is he going to do like a standard 3-episode thing? What's going on?
Well, I think it
He
was
see-
kind of an
Sorry.
I think it was
Go
kind
ahead,
of an
sorry.
interesting choice to bring him back as a random character because he was almost cast as Riker. It was down to him and Jonathan Frakes, so to bring him back, I think it's interesting because clearly he was a favorite of the producers at one time or another.
But still, they chose wisely. All right.
So will the protostar get caught by the Romulans, and what do you think will happen in the neutral zone?
Like, I have my fingers crossed for a sympathetic Romulan that will help them, but I'm not holding my breath.
Not at the border. Not at the border. I think what I really like about this is that there's so many layers. You know, they're behind enemy lines. They literally can't talk to the protostar or the Dauntless. They can't obviously reach out to the Romulans. And now we have the Dauntless interfacing directly with the Romulans. So there's like a possible threat of war as well. So there's a lot of layers to this. And as Janeway pointed out, they are children, you know, so it's like there's a lot of plates being spun at once.
Yeah, that was kind of part of what I didn't like about this episode. Apart from all the miscommunication between meeting with the actual Starfleet officers, it's the fact that these kids may have just started a war inadvertently. Like, they're trying so hard to get to Starfleet, and they're just, through complete coincidence, doing everything wrong.
I think about like where it is in the timeline, basically, or should I say when it is in the timeline? Because it's like, as far as I can gather, it's like after Nemesis, but before Picard, and in both, like, Starfleet and the Romulans seem to like be, you know, not at each other's throats, like patching up their difficulties and stuff like that. Or at least, you know, in Picard's case, have been like during the struggle to get the Romulans out of the danger zone from the supernova, and then like it seems like they're about to establish diplomatic ties at the end of Nemesis. So I'm like, how much room does that leave to have like a war? It seems a bit too like it's not going to happen.
That's fair. Yeah, no time for war. Our sun is exploding. I did have one theory, though, actually just hit me as far as like the sympathetic Romulan goes. Dan, help me out here with the episode title. It's that TNG episode where all the races come together and find the progenitors.
The chase.
The chase. That's actually what I was thinking. Now, didn't that end with the Romulan commander like talking to Picard and saying maybe we're not so different after all? Or was that a Cardassian commander?
I think it's Romulan.
It was the Romulans.
Yeah, I recently rewatched the episode, but I didn't have time to watch the very end of it.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe. I mean, they're bringing back old characters. Maybe they'll run into that guy.
Now, I know we didn't have a question for this, but speaking of people that we run into, I know we've established already that the universe is kind of small in Prodigy, but we saw a Kazon this week again, and Tars Lamora was kind of insinuated to be somewhere on the border of the Delta and Gamma quadrants, and now we're somewhere near the border of the Delta and Beta quadrants, but the Kazon space is kind of small at the other end of the Delta quadrant. Questions?
Yeah.
I think you were on mute, Vanessa.
Yeah, that was weird. I had heard the writer of the last episode talking about how at this point the Prodigy was or the Prodigy, wow, the Protostar was kind of tooling around the Beta Quadrant near the Romulan neutral zone, and this proved it. Yeah, it's a little weird to see Kazon though. Whoa, and she's gone.
I thought it might be a bit like like in Voyager's case, like the USS Voyager, like its homeworld and where you're going to find the vast majority of humans, is obviously far distant from where the USS Voyager, and that's a whole ship of like predominantly humans, seems like, the when they end up in the Delta Quadrant. So I think I guess like some people have said about like the Roman Empire and stuff like that, that there's quite a lot of travelers, and yeah, even though it's not like their home region, maybe you still get like a lot of people that are traveling far and wide, as it were.
Right. That's fair.
Because I do think as well, like probably like where the Cation is from, even in that we see at the very start of the series in the very first episode.
Yeah.
For example, like probably like they're not from a planet, the Delta Quadrant, I've always thought, because like you see like Emrys in the animated series, and I wouldn't have thought like the like she would have come from the Delta Quadrant, but I may be wrong.
Is that character confirmed to be Cation, or is it just another
Yes.
cat-like race? Okay.
It's confirmed to be Cation.
Yeah, I mean, I was raising that question from the beginning. The Delta Quadrant seemed to have a lot of very familiar races from other quadrants in the beginning of Prodigy.
And also, like, people have commented, like in Voyager's case, like, people have commented that it was the idea of the show was that they were in an entire different region of space. They were going to be encountering new aliens like all the time. But before long, it was stuff like you'd see Romulans, you'd see Q, like all these familiar characters show up.
Yeah, a couple lost Ferengi.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
What do you think happened between the end of Enterprise? Oh, I will wait for Vanessa.
Oh, you're still muted.
You're still dead.
Yeah. I don't know what. No idea. Okay.
Right, well, what do you think happened between the end of Enterprise Season 3 and now to account for why the Xindi reptilians are running security for Starfleet? That was the question, but I don't think it was phrased quite right. Because I don't think they were actually running the security for Starfleet. They just...
I mean, they definitely took orders from Janeway.
Yeah.
I don't know how much influence Starfleet actually has, like, running that depot.
Yeah, I was just thinking maybe it's just an influenced world.
Yeah.
Oh, Vanessa can't make it.
Oh. I mean, it's been a while, and I like that season, but...
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that must have been something big, though. I mean, because they had to stop the Xindi weapon right at the end, and... Yeah, wasn't it literally Xindi reptilians that were trying to set off that weapon?
Yep.
Yeah.
And now they're taking orders from Starfleet, and it has been roughly 200 years.
Not only was it like originally Xindi reptilians, but they also like persuade the insectoids to like help them with that.
Yep.
Basically during the course of the season, the third season.
I guess it's been a formative 200 years or so.
It's been closer to 3. And you would think where the Xindi reptilians and insectoids had been the ones to destroy their original homeworld, And then they came back around and everybody made friends for a minute, and then they parted ways again. That even if the Xindi proper join the Federation, that the reptilians kind of can't be trusted no matter what. But I guess this is maybe proving that wrong.
Maybe.
I guess it's also showing that the Battle of Procyon 5 is very unlikely to now happen, I would say.
Refresh our memories here, Dan.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Basically, like Daniels takes Archer to the 20th, I think it's the 25th century, where you see like there's a battle going on outside the ship, because like he says, like the space is being converted into the home realm of the Sphere Builders. There's purple stuff also outside the Enterprise J.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And the Xindi oh, that's right. The Xindi are fighting with the Federation. That's what that's what it is.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten. I thought they were fighting against them, but they're not.
Can folks hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Okay. I am so sorry.
No problem. It happens. We are live.
Technical glitches happen.
Yep. That's cool. You're back.
Oh yeah.
So we are up to, what does everyone think about the crew's reaction to Vice Admiral Janeway?
I thought it was in alignment with how a child would react to that type of situation. Stuttering, scared, intimidated, not sure what to say. He even articulates, like Dahl says, have you ever needed to do something, but you just can't push yourself over that threshold? I felt like Dahl really personified the sort of unsureness of the crew and himself, and that to me is entirely credible as far as not being able to communicate. Like, there's a lot of plot contrivances people can throw around in order to have things not get a message not get across. But I felt like as far as that goes, I thought this made perfect sense. He's a child and he's meeting somebody who is not the warm, huggy, friendly Captain Janeway on the Protostar. She's a very take no BS kind of person. So
there was sort of one moment in that sort of part of the episode that really fell apart for me, which was the moment when Dahl shouts out and suggests maybe we're benevolent or whatever, because I thought firstly when you've seen him be unsure and a bit nervous about meeting Janeway, and then he's got the confidence and the gall to shout out that, but also the sheer amount of space in that area. I was surely maybe I would have thought his voice might be lost, they wouldn't be able to hear because there's so much. It's quite a big space to fill with sound waves for them to be able to hear.
Maybe, but I mean, also, I mean, he wasn't facing her, and sometimes it is a lot easier to tell someone something if you're not looking at them. It's especially if it's a situation where they intimidate you.
I get that. Thanks.
But that whole sequence where just everybody's meeting the Dauntless crew, and on that, I also wonder, these four are the only people we've seen on the Dauntless bridge crew. Does that mean they literally teleport or transported their entire bridge crew down to this depot? Because I know we see people on the bridge when they come back, but that's obviously people coming to replace their positions. And how big is the Dauntless bridge crew? And does the Doctor need to be part of it? Now I think about it. But then that whole thing where it just over and over, it's a miscommunication or a mixed message or something that's taken out of context. It was getting on me. It was getting to me after a while, especially the very first one where Commander Tysus walks by Rock and she apparently didn't recognize his uniform or the comm badge. you know, from an up and coming science officer, that really got to me.
I had something to bring up and now I forgot it.
Yeah, I was curious
It was
what your
something off
thoughts
of
were.
something Dan was saying about Janeway, and I've lost it.
About what Dahl said, like, you know, loud enough for everybody to hear.
Oh no, it was about you asked who was left in charge. The real question is, why does the Dauntless not have a captain? I mean, you usually would have an admiral will have a flagship and a command ship, but there's still a captain of that ship usually. So it's kind of odd. Is there a captain we've not seen and maybe that person is left in command, or, you know, questions?
I guess it's sort of one of those situations where Janeway is in fact being driven by emotion because she's going after Chakotay, and I could absolutely see her be like, it doesn't matter who's captain because I'm taking over the ship. And that, as a vice admiral, as a vice admiral, she can do that. So I can definitely see Janeway throwing her weight around in order to go on a mission like this.
Yeah, she might have just commandeered the ship. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we see through this whole thing, like, well, not through the whole thing, but her emotions are at the very least heightened, and they are definitely influencing her decision making, because she was ready to take off into the Romulan neutral zone, and, you know, Tysus had to talk her down.
What does Murph's metamorphosis mean for the crew going forward?
Metamorphosis. First off, they're going to have to teach them not to, you know, just sit anywhere, because that's clearly going to be an issue.
I don't think it personally means much. I think it's just a great gag for a kids show that keeps the kids interested, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is not Murph's final form.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Is anyone familiar with Pikmin?
The video game?
Yeah.
Not really, no.
Oh, right. Okay. Or at least what it looks like. It's someone's likening his new form to that.
I thought that this means that he's more of an asset to the crew because he's humanoid. He can actually like move around. He has appendages, extremities now. And what I think this might be building up to is Murph eating the weapon, maybe.
Which I've been saying, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I fully believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, hopefully it'd be more useful on missions, because presumably, you know, they're still indestructible. But, you know, I'd imagine at least some of the next episode is going to be like, oh, now we're dealing with basically, you know, a baby on the ship. And Rock Talk will be ecstatic.
A baby on the ship and a weapon over enemy lines. Like, there's so much coming together at once.
Kids, right?
What could be interesting is if his final form becomes something that's like a vessel for Zero, and like they merge, so there's more of like a consciousness with that indestructible gooey body.
So it'd be like Murph Dusa, like Tuvix kind of thing.
Oh no!
Yes, Murph Dusa
might solve the problem of Zero, like worrying that they'll hurt other people again if they see them without the suit.
That's true. Now, I like his suit, although it is kind of odd that sometimes he can walk around and sometimes he just hovers.
They hover.
Yeah, sometimes you see Zero without legs.
Oh, right.
I'm interested to see, like, if he's gonna be able to integrate with the crew in a more social way beyond just making bubbles and noises and things. Like, is he gonna be able to sort of use the panel to communicate words at some point? Like, are we watching him sort of mature into someone that can contribute to the crew other than being their mascot?
If the torpedoes away this week are any indication, probably not, but, you know, maybe there's room to grow there.
Yeah. Just one more miscommunication, yeah.
How do you think Admiral... Oh, did you have more? How do you think Admiral Janeway is going to deal with the kids, since her first comment was, "You didn't mention they were kids"? Yeah,
she was like, again, being kind of emotionally driven. She was ready to come down hard on this crew because presumably they know where Chakotay is. But now it's like, oh, wait, they're children. Okay, we need to adjust our thinking here.
Yeah, I was thinking the same kind of thing until then she answers torpedoes with torpedoes, but I mean, I guess that's Janeway's thing. Full spread with 37 torpedoes total. Let's go.
But she was targeting their third nacelle, the one that like would make them able to jump in. Yeah. So she was like cripple them, not kill them, which would be a very different order. So they did, and they succeeded, and they that's all that happened. No one was hurt. So, and a weapons officer worth his, you know, Navy beans or whatever would be able to make that shot.
I was getting like flashbacks, and the, you know, when they're going through the warp tunnel or whatever, yeah, because they're traveling like over warp 9. I was getting like flashbacks to like some of my favorite Star Trek productions, like Endgame and Into Darkness. I thought it was a really cool sequence.
Or like Sliders. Anybody
Yes.
seen Sliders?
But still, the fact that like she aimed to cripple the engine kind of implies like this was after she found out they were kids. So it kind of implies that like if she didn't know that, she might have blown him up.
And at the same time, though, I mean, normally targeting a nacelle might not be that big a thing because the warp core is somewhere else. But with the protostar, you're literally targeting a star with a photon torpedo. That sounds like it could have some really drastic ramifications.
Yeah.
But do you think that she really cares if they're kids? Because it doesn't seem like she cared much, like to leave the kids behind in Threshold.
Oh yeah.
She cares more when
she's
got
got
her kids.
Well, also, the diviner's daughter is on board. The diviner's daughter is on board, so she didn't want to destroy the ship. I think she very well could have in that slipstream fired many more torpedoes if that was her goal, but she fired exactly one that did exactly what it was designed to do.
Since we're way ahead of time here, I'm going to go on a tangent question and ask what it would be like with this Dauntless class ship that Janeway can seemingly go anywhere with and go rescue her and Tom's kids.
That's pretty cool.
Again, she just seems to care more when it's not her kids.
Yeah.
It looked like that the end of Threshold kind of looked like, God, that was a weird drunken night out. You want to talk about it? And they just sort of like agreed that, you know what, we're just never gonna bring this up again. And they don't, you know, and I think, yeah, they're just like, whatever. But it would be really funny if, like, you know, since this is a kid show, we want to like give people good role models for parents, I guess, to like go back and say hello to the salamander people.
Yeah, and like maybe go back in time and say to Worf, like, be a good dad and stuff.
Oh God! Now you just said
Right.
salamander people. That could make for an even more interesting plot. So you go back and find
Exactly.
out that the babies have evolved and they've created this little civilization. That could be really neat.
Slightly inbred civilization, but yeah. Yeah, it stands to reason.
Or
Are
maybe
they
they,
still like salamanders because they have been hyper evolved, right?
or maybe they pick up some DNA and crossbreed with something else similar on that planet. That was always the other weird thing for me. It's like, man, you didn't just break the Prime Directive here. You introduced non-native life to this planet and just left it there.
Yeah.
We got a
But
comment.
like, would it be breaking the Prime Directive because they're like a pre-warp civilization to make contact with them? You know, like.
It probably depends how anal you want to be about the Prime Directive.
Did we get a comment?
Yes, and
Nice.
it's from my wife, so I will just ask it because it's not letting me just click and post it. But what happens? Thank you. What happens in the Delta Quadrant stays in the Delta Quadrant. Not really a question, but a nice addition. That's the truth.
First rule of Voyager was we don't talk about what happens in the Delta Quadrant.
We don't talk about threshold. No.
Is the Tellarites' interaction with Pog reflective of abrasive Tellarite culture, or is this Starfleet officer just being a jerk?
Oh, it could easily be both. But this particular interaction, this is like the one that I didn't care about with the miscommunication because I was just thinking, okay, Tellarite's going to Tellarite.
Yeah, literally the first thing I said to myself was, man, two Tellarites dissing each other. I guess that's Tuesday.
I appreciated the difference in their looks and their designs, which obviously we've seen Dr. Gnome, was it 1 or 2 episodes, something like that.
So was that? You blipped a bit.
But, yeah, I just thought it's cool having them both in the same scene, and you can like really appreciate like how they do look different as Tellarites and how that reflects on the rest of canon with the ways that the Tellarite makeup design has changed over the years, etc. And I did take. It didn't even occur to me that maybe the elder Tellarite, Dr. Gnome, is being facetious or being deceptive or whatever. I took him at his words that Pogs are the runts of the species, but who knows.
So I actually thought this was actually a bit of a step above. Like, I know Tellarites are insulting and that's sort of how they interact, but this seemed to be a little bit more classist. Like there's some sort of caste system on their planet and they're reinforcing it. And Pog is completely divorced from his own culture, so he has no idea. All he heard about it was like what he heard through Starfleet, that they're one of the first aliens in the Federation. So he's like, oh, we're royalty, and so he gets knocked down several pegs by this particular Starfleet officer. So it was really interesting example for me of like a Starfleet officer being really not just like insulting as a Tellarite, but like intolerant, like a bit of a bigot seemingly. And I was really surprised, but like pleasantly surprised, because we always like tout the Federation as being this sort of like lofty, everybody's the same, one love, one family, whatever. and clearly he's literally looking down on him, not just like height wise, but just as another being. So he looks at him like less than.
I think like Kurtzman era Trek has done that again and again and again. They keep bringing like examples of like bigoted characters in Star Trek, in Starfleet and stuff like that of the 21st century and beyond. Whereas before, I think they did establish more often at least from the 24th century, the like mankind had achieved a certain sense of living ideally or whatever, but obviously with instances where they tried to breach that, like with Deep Space Nine and stuff.
Mhm.
Well, you also had Kirk saying about the Klingons, let them all die.
Yeah, which is why I said from the 21st century on.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was a really nice addition to a classic race that we've known since TOS, one of the founding members of the Federation, and we're finally fleshing them out. It's out of the big, 5 Tellarites, Vulcans, humans, Andorians. What's the 5th one, Dan? I know there's a big 5.
Well, there's 4, but there's 5. There's something like there was 5 planets or something like that, because there was a human colony, I think, or something like that.
Was it Beta Z?
No, that wasn't one of the founders. Anyway,
The founding species were humans, Vulcans, Andorians, and Tellarites.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought there was a 5th one, but anyway, for being a founding member, it's the least fleshed out race. So it's really nice to see this like little nuance that there are different types of Tellarites. Kind of neat.
Yeah. I kept thinking probably like Larry Nemechuk is extremely ecstatic about this show because he's been basically lobbying for more development of the Tellarite species for like years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? Because we're literally at the end of our questions and we could go to our pips.
How do you think the Romulans are going to respond?
I think they're going to end up sidelining the protostar for a little while. I don't think they'll get a look at it, but I don't think they're going to get any info out of it. And obviously, since it's a kid show that we're stuck with the set piece for now, they're not going to take it. But yeah, I think they'll sideline them for a while.
I think maybe like the weapon, so-called weapon, might affect only like Starfleet and the Federation apparently caused the destruction of the Diviner's species and stuff. And maybe if it comes in contact with Romulans, like it might like like drug into their noses and stuff and make them all extremely peaceful and be like this side of paradise where all like, yeah, you're cool.
Right. I think if the Romulans get the weapon, they could very well use it against Starfleet. If they,
they would.
Taking it over would be pretty easy. So
it's like just reminds me of like the danger of the Jansen's device falling into the hands of the Klingons.
There was one thing. Somebody else mentioned this. I was listening to it in a review. Is it possible that the Diviner being on the Dauntless is going to turn out to be like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and like that's what leads Starfleet to go to Solon? Set off just the whole thing?
Interesting.
Also, if the Diviner comes to and realizes that he's on a Federation starship, I mean, he could cause a lot of damage on the Dauntless.
Well,
be like, we need to contact the Protostar. Why? We need to do it.
I thought like two things. I thought like the Diviner was like from the far future, not just the relative future, as it were. But also like I'm really surprised that like even now, like we still don't have like an established name as we know names to be for the Diviner. It's still just the Diviner.
Oh, right.
Which
Yeah.
I would have thought would be more like a title than a name. Surely, like his first name isn't the.
That's true.
Div. No, his literal name is Div Einer. That's how his like ID.
Nice.
I hope it's not a thing where someone like asks him his name and then suddenly he's like, oh, now I know who I am. Like that kind of
That's
just
a little convenient.
snapping away.
Although now that you mentioned, yeah, it's a little weird. He's been on the Dauntless this long. Nobody's like, what is his name?
Yeah, I thought like, at least I would have thought like maybe Gwen would know his name. Gwen.
Does anybody have any new theories this week about where Chakotay is? I just want an update. Last week, Vanessa, you had called on me on that question, and I really didn't have an answer. So I defaulted to something I'd seen, but somebody posit, but didn't really believe in, that the Diviner might turn out to be Chakotay, because it sounds good for a kids show, but I don't know how they'd convincingly pull it off. So where is Chakotay?
Maybe he's in the weapon. I don't know.
Maybe he is the weapon.
He's a living construct. Yeah, but that's gonna be hard to figure out because I mean, the protostars originally like crashed on Tars Lamora somewhere and buried under Chimerium. So what happened to the crew? Well, I mean, we kind of saw the bit of a log. Clearly, Dreadnought happened to the crew, but what happened after that?
I thought it was an interesting sort of callback when you see the protostar buried at the start of this episode. I thought it was an interesting like callback to the start of the series.
And interestingly, Jimmy Simpson, the guy that voiced Dreadnought, is still in the credits. So I'm kind of wondering if he's going to make yet another appearance.
I just noticed that this week, and I hadn't gone back to see whether he's been in it the whole time since he's been gone, and it's just a contractual first season thing, or whether, it's a hint that he's coming back.
What would that be, Dreadnought 3.0 at this point?
I mean, I figure that he's going to end up coming back through that vehicle replicator, which probably still has his pattern that he pulled himself from or something, but I guess we'll see.
Like I'm surprised that they have, if that's the case, if there's just like patterns just stored in places where you can just 3D print people, I'm surprised they haven't made like armies of Chakotays at this point, or like, just anybody they want. And it's the same guy. So who cares? Like, why go on this mission? You can just hit print and there he is.
It's like an ongoing, complaint with a transporter. It's been like, you have this person's pattern, so why can't you just bring them back when you need them to? And didn't they actually do that once with Picard and TNG? I feel like they did.
They've done that with a few people, I think.
Yeah, in the really bad episode where he turns into energy, and I can't even remember the name of it right now. He goes out into the nebula and comes back, but can't remember it because they used a pattern from before to reconstitute him.
Yeah.
Is that where Silence is Lise?
Yes.
Nope, different one. Nope, where Silence has Lise is with Nagilum.
Oh, Nagilum, that's right, yeah. He like gets blown out of the front like vape oil, and they have to like pull him back in, and he starts like lighting up the display with a letter P from Picard.
Maybe Times Squared?
Nope, that's with Tuba.
No, that's like a future version where a future version of him comes back, but
it's so bad that neither Dan or I can remember the name.
Right.
So
one for the record, Bruce.
Where would you hide the protostar? Like if you were gonna store it somewhere?
Oh, good question.
I did like their thing where they like, parked it in a canyon and set off an avalanche to cover it. I thought that was really clever.
And also reminded me of what's it called? That Voyager episode. Really, they find Voyager under ice. Timeless.
Sure. I'm still behind.
Oh, right, okay. But I think if I was to hide the protostar, I'd probably try and use a cloaking device. I kept thinking that like someone could still find it under the ice and it would be potentially visible like Voyager is even though it's like stuck under ice, it's still like visible from the planet's surface.
Like you could still scan it and find it there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, because even if you shut all the systems down, I don't think you can shut a protostar off. So you'd think that, you'd dump snow on it, but anybody with scanning technology should be able to find it in seconds.
Yeah. But hey, there's
find somewhere a little more out of the way.
I'd be surprised if you couldn't shut that protostar down, though.
Well, it's a star, though. I mean, it's kind of in the name. If you shut it down, can you start it again? I don't know.
Fair point.
Questions.
They can do anything in Star Trek, it seems like, sometimes.
I think it's,
I think magic.
Unless they destroyed it, it's going to be pretty easily found. And I think the tricky part is to keep it away from Starfleet itself, which is pretty much impossible if it's still operational. And even if it's not, it's still got that weapon. So, yeah, I would think it's time to fling that thing into a black hole or something. Like it's who cares?
How do you think it could get worse? Because I was thinking, like, maybe if it got infected by an AI that really wanted to make contact with Starfleet, it might make the situation worse. But is there any other ways?
Oh my gosh, what if it met Control?
Yeah, like that.
Badgie.
Oh yeah.
Load the consciousness into lore.
Oh no.
Oh yes, and we are gonna do that come February.
Yeah, one of my favorite Easter eggs, and we actually brought up the episode earlier, an embarrassment of Dupplers. Like I didn't notice anybody else pointed it out, but when Mariner and Boimler are talking to that guy about shipping, Data bubble bath, and Boimler's like, "Are any of these lures?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, a few of them are probably lures." I don't think anybody noticed the one Boimler's holding at the time is smirking. He's holding a lure.
Yeah, I noticed that. I remember that. It was pretty funny.
Is that Dan?
I remember that. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. One of the brighter points in that poor episode.
Like, do you think the characterization of Okana is consistent with the outrageous Okana? Because I don't think so. He seems like a different guy.
Losing an eye will do that to you.
He seemed just like he came right off of TNG to me.
I thought he seemed too different. I thought he seemed like a lot more reformed or whatever. A lot less roguish.
He's a roguish. That's a nice way to put it. I would say he's like less focused on picking up women. And I guess that makes sense for like a kid's show. Yeah. But I mean, the extent to which he would do that on that episode was nuts. Like as soon as he got off the transporter, he was like, "You're like beeline for Ashley Judd." Terry Hatcher, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It was not even 2 seconds. But yeah, like with this, he seems a little more he doesn't seem as cocky to me. Like a little more mature and seen some things. He seems a little less confident.
Dustin, before we went live, like you were commenting how much blue there is in this episode. Do you think there's too much blue in this episode?
If I thought that there wasn't enough, that's why I added this blue shirt to all this blue stuff behind me. Honestly, the episode itself didn't bother me. It wasn't until I put this graphic together that I'm like, we're layering blue on top of blue on top of blue. And normally I make my lettering blue, and I'm like, no, that is too much blue.
I can't do that.
Can we talk about the Zindi?
Yeah.
We did. If you want, you didn't get a chance to answer, and if you
it's okay. I mean, I really like. I wonder, since it's a frozen planet, do we have aquatic Zindi like trapped under the ice too?
Ooh,
or is it just that would be horrible?
And someone brought up the reviewer for Warp Factor Track brought up the point that in the third season of Enterprise, you see like the Xindi reptilians using like heat lamps and stuff like that. So, like the sheer diversity of climates that they're found in,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
Were
you'd
these
think
the
out of all the
insectoid ones?
no, these were the
Or-
reptilian ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you'd think out of all the Xindi races, it would be the more ape-like ones, or the
Arboreals.
arboreals.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me a bit of Ruapente. With the
Or Andoria, or the Green Homeworlds was also frozen, or Hoth in Star Wars.
Or the Star Wars Cantina. Are we ready for pips, or
like I had a question. I had one
Go.
question. I'm sorry. Like, do you think that they could have? Do you really think that it was a good plan to just ask for rides? Can we just have a ride? Like, was that a good solid
Well,
idea?
how would you suggest to do it otherwise?
Well, both Okana and the Klingon wanted to trade something for it, and that does kind of make sense. They might not really have a monetary system, but they should have been able. Like they should have needed or to realize that they needed to do something to pay their way onto the ship.
Yeah, it was another like this is a kid thing to do. Like I'm just gonna ask and expect in return a thing that there's no reason they would give it to me, So I really enjoyed how naive it was to just like go around and be like, I want to ride. I want to ride home. Like I just thought that was cute, but yeah.
And even if they couldn't have used it to interface with anything Starfleet, they could have used the vehicle replicator to make a shuttle or something to get themselves off planet and then done something from there.
And it was also naive to not think that the path of destruction that they've been leaving might be picked up on and people might not be happy about it, like a space station exploding, to sort of assume that all Starfleet is just thrilled to see them.
Did anyone else get like a kick out of seeing Barnes Fix again? Because I thought it was quite cool that how they like developed his story, where the last thing you see of him is launching in an escape pod. And I thought I expected more like his escape pod to be picked up, but like that's already all happened. So like it doesn't, go straight to like him being in person, basically.
Yeah, I'm still against him though because he decided to abandon a bunch of kids on an exploding space station.
Yeah.
And his information for Janeway, like it's true, but slightly out of context, so it just lends more to the whole miscommunication theme of the episode.
I also think like he was a little bit set on saving his own neck in that instant because an entire space station is blown up. So it's easy to just go, they did it, then I trusted someone and it didn't work out.
I think it's really convenient that he ended up on this planet and the Protostar went through a whole episode and did their own thing and went on a little mission, and now they've randomly come to the same planet.
And the Dauntless, yeah. Okay, I have one more thing. This is something it's been biting at me for a while. So the whole idea with the living construct is if they try to contact Starfleet, the Starfleet base or ship, whatever, is going to destroy itself. But somehow nobody has come up with the idea of contacting a different Federation race. I mean, presumably, the Starfleet ships can communicate with other ships, so there's a connection there. But does that necessarily mean the living construct is going to do the same thing if they try to contact a Vulcan ship, or if they had stayed on the Klingon ship? I don't know.
I think they wouldn't want to risk it. And I can kind of respect that. Like, you don't want to find out mid-communication that, oh, this is actually hostile to other things as well.
Well, it might work for them with the Romulans.
I was always just kind of expecting, like, the Dauntless is going to come up on them and they can't make regular communication, but they just figure out, like, Morse code with some lights or something. But they've gone... that was where I was thinking would be great for a kids show, but then they went above and beyond so far, and they've really taken the story to another level. I'm impressed.
Very excited to see what comes next.
So I guess it's time to go around and share our pips. Would you like to start, Dan?
Out of 5.
Yep.
Maybe like 3, down from like 3.5 last week.
That's fair.
I did like seeing Barnes Fricks though, and I thought like that sort of storyline where like you encounter him on the same planet, and just like, oh no, I'm talking rubbish. But it sort of did remind me of like the second episode in Discovery season 3. Although that's different, I was thinking just now, because like time has elapsed differently for both Burnham and the crew. But in this case, like there's no time difference. But yeah, it's sort of like similar in a way.
Vanessa?
I really love this episode. I think I'm gonna go like a 4. I think there were some things that were sort of convenient here and there. I can see what Dustin's saying. Like they just all happen to be on the same planet at the exact same time. That seems pretty kind of that's pushing it even for what it is. But I really enjoyed the fact that it's realistically children dealing with an adult situation, and they're way in over their head right now, and they're even deeper in over their head with a weapon behind enemy lines, and having a vice admiral on the other side trying to get at them, trying to avoid war and a possible mutiny on the protostar. Like the second in command looks like he's like, okay, I'm drawing the line here, and the line's here and no further kind of deal. So, I feel like there's a lot being built up to in the next episode. So I give it a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the best I can do is 3. It was just all the miscommunication between the kids and the Dauntless crew. Like once or twice, sure, but all 4 of them, that's a little too much. And then it keeps going even further because they accidentally shoot a torpedo at the Dauntless, and then they're quite literally on the verge of starting a war, which may or may not happen because this is around the time the Romulan sun's exploding. And then you have Okana come back, which is fine, but again, literally could have been anyone. And like I said, you could have introduced a new character at this point, and it would have been fine if they literally did with Murph. But I did like his metamorphosis, and the fact that it did seem a little Star Wars-y was actually okay with me. So yeah, 3 out of 5.
I'm going to go the same thing as last week and go a 4, because I like it for the same amount for different reasons. I do think this is definitely the best episode yet in the series, but it's still got some room to grow. It's not as funny like last week, which is what I appreciated about that one, but this one's mostly serious, except for that stuff that you guys were talking about, where there's a lot of conveniences and, oh, hey, missed communications, missed connections. Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. I'm at 4. Anybody else have any final thoughts?
I really liked seeing like the returning characters, basically, like the Zindy Reptilians, like not having seen the Zindy since very briefly in was it the fourth season, I think, of Discovery, Starbase, and yeah, very briefly. And yeah, O'Connor, and the even time to squeeze in the Romulans at the end. But I think the danger with that is, like, if it's all people that you know that are familiar, like, I think the danger can be that you make like the universe seem too small. I think that's a question as to whether they did or not in this episode. Personally, I don't think they did, because like you do see like there are other active species at the rendezvous site, the station or whatever. But yeah, I think that might be a question, like whether it made the universe seem too small.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if nobody has anything else, thanks to our panelists for joining in the discussion. We hope you, the viewers, have enjoyed this presentation. Please remember to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you later on Subspace Chatter.